all the time. Like when he first came to the United States, like he was sleeping on people's couches while he was building his career. And he's like, I could not have done this on my own. I owe my success to the dozens of people in my life that were there for me when I had nothing and supported me while I worked on myself. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here.
Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy. All right, we are live. This is SipTalk, episode 273. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Boswell, Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philatelist, phlebotomist, philanderer. Did I say philanthropist?
Yeah.
A man of many PHs, high PH in his own opinion. I'm hardwired in, James. I have very little risk of the internet going out of me tonight, which was obviously the casualty we suffered a couple episodes ago.
Yep.
You're hardwired in.
Yeah.
You're a hardwired internet kind of guy, right?
I mean, my work computer isn't, but I also don't care if that goes down. So it's just wild. It has been, I guess, the last office I had, I was hardwired in, and my apartment I was hardwired in, but it's not being actually having a wire connected to your laptop connected to a router is very rare these days. A lot of laptops don't even have an Ethernet port anymore.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, my laptop definitely does not. I have a little dock that clips into my laptop, and it plugs into all 4 USB-C ports, and then it's got like a bunch of HDMI, USB-C, USB 2, whatever, USB Roman numeral 1 in the back. But I'm hardwired in. Point being, so if you're tuned in for this episode, I'm not going anywhere. So, would you like to describe the video that is today's motivation for the episode?
It's partial inspiration. I stumbled across this video on the Reddits earlier this week, and I think everybody that's watching this podcast, so all like 4 of you, should take the 11 minutes and watch it from start to finish. The title of the video is "Professor Has Mental Breakdown and Accuses Class of Cheating." And I promise you, the direction that the video goes in is not one that you expect.
When I started watching this video, because I actually stumbled across it organically on one of the other apps before you told it to me, and I don't think I even finished watching it, but I watched a good 7-8 minutes or something. And I initially, as I started listening to it, thought it was a professor having a breakdown, being super pissed because his class was using ChatGPT to write essays and take at-home quizzes or something like that, and they were all getting higher scores. And on the contrary, I was incorrect. But it was a funny video. I don't think I liked it as much as you did, though.
No, I loved it because I think that it actually has a lot more to say than just being a funny video.
I got to ask you before we get into it today. What are you drinking down there in sunny South Carolina?
I'm drinking my first beer in a week and my first beer for probably the next week.
Oh, wow.
A single PBR.
Wow. I have done a dry June so far, with the exception of June 11th, which was June 11th or 12th, whichever day it was. The day was a blur anyways. Blame the alcohol. The day that they passed the FAIR Act, the broker fee bill, which is it is a bill that is responsible for the single largest increase in rent prices in New York City in all of history. So that's a pretty wild bill. Still playing out. It's not the end of the world, but it's another. There's a bill that came out in 2019. We actually did a few episodes on it. I don't remember if you were on the episodes or not back then, but we talked about the HSTPA law, which basically had a lot of really negative effects. Number one was that landlords could no longer check eviction history for their tenants, which I think is wild. It would be like banks not being able to check somebody's foreclosure history or their credit history. That's wild. And then another one of the HSTPA, the 2019, was that landlords are capped at an amount that they can increase the rent based off the renovations. So basically doing any more than like $2,500 worth of renovations to an apartment is a negative return on investment. So Bad law. There's a lot of other reasons. I won't get into it.
All right.
I'm
So
still.
that was the one day that you didn't drink.
That was one day I did drink.
The one day you did drink, yeah. So I'm gonna see how long I can keep the sobriety thing going. Like for the most part, it's good, but there are certain instances where it sucks.
Well, we're going to talk about motivation today, but I will tell you, and I usually I've been doing at least a full month every year with just no alcohol at all. But it's wild how much I'm realizing this time around. I think about alcohol, like it'll be like three, and I don't think about alcohol that much when I'm not drinking. When I am drinking, but I found that now that I'm not drinking, it'll be like a Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and I'm like, man, today it gives me like the total like gin martini vibe. Or the other day I came home and there was like a dark red crimson sunset. I was like, oh my god, this sunset with a Negroni. Oh, that's it. And no drinking, but I think about alcohol a lot more when I'm not drinking.
Yeah. For the most part, I don't miss it, and I'm definitely feeling a lot better. And we'll get into that later.
Well, yeah, we'll get into it. I'm going to talk about some hard work that I did over the weekend in a minute, and how badly I was craving an ice cold, crisp, light beer.
But
we'll get there when we start
I want
talking
to.
about work. You want to just break the video down, just give the highlights of the video because nobody's going to watch it.
No, no. It's I like. I don't want to ruin anything about it. It's something that you just have to
Okay.
experience. Anyways, the video had me thinking about a bunch of things, and like this morning I woke up and a question like was just like racing through my mind of like, and it might have been from like a dream, but like if you could go back 20 years in time, knowing what you know now, like in terms of knowledge and wisdom and stuff, would you? Now the rules are like you can't cheat. So you can't just like buy stock or like buy a winning Powerball ticket or something like that. Like it's you can only use your information, like your knowledge and wisdom to like make better choices when it comes to like relationship and career and stuff like that.
So, okay, so you can't go back with the Powerball numbers. You just
Yeah,
have to give kind of general life advice to your younger self.
pretty much.
Um, and and the question you have is, what advice would you give your younger self, right?
Yeah.
And then you told me the answer off
So
air.
so my answer would be if you were to say you can go back in time 20 years like according to these rules, my answer would probably be no.
When you told me that earlier, I was like, oh, you should have told me that. I wanted to react and give you my answer without having time, time to think about it. But I would sort of agree with you. Like, if somebody just gave me the cheat code, then you're not really playing the game, right? Like it's takes away from it. And what you and I know now is what we've learned through experiences. And
Mostly mistakes.
and my next sentence being some of the more negative experiences we've learned the most from, and that has developed our character. And sweet and the sour, you can only appreciate the sweet once you taste the sour. You have to have some negativity to be able to appreciate the good things. If everything's just great, then
It's hard to learn from good experiences.
well, I mean, where's that feedback coming from? What
Yeah.
people don't change or because they're comfortable, right? So if you're always comfortable, right, and if you set yourself up at 20 years old to be super wealthy or just have an easy life, I would argue that you're just going to live in misery. Like after a little while, you're just going to start creating drama or just being miserable. So
Or you're just not going to know how to treat people. You're not going to be able to have like it's going to be really difficult but not impossible for you to have like satisfying and meaningful relationships because you always have like a bailout in some way.
well, I mean, think about just any regular relationship. If that other person could never leave, right? Like you would not have to treat them well, right?
Mhm.
So you have to. There always has to be a possibility for loss, right? Like so, like having all the answers all the time. I just don't think there's that much positive. I don't think the outcome ends up being that great because it's not
I
authentic.
I also think that like if I were to take like the knowledge and stuff that I have right now and port it back 20 years, I don't think that I would have the ability to really put it into play the right way, and I don't think things would play out the way I would want them to. And so I would rather take the experiences that I have right now and everything that I've learned and be grateful that I'm still here to be able to make good decisions moving forward. and those decisions are better informed now because of the mistakes that I've made. Like a line that I kind of crafted sometime last week is like, you can let your mistakes define you or refine you.
I like that. I've heard different versions of that, but I haven't heard that particular phrasing of it. So, but I think that's when you hear people who have become successful who started with little, and they're talking or started with great adversity, and they're talking to people like a underprivileged community or something, they say effectively the same thing. They're like, I had all this shit working against me as well, and I used it. What most people do is they use it as an excuse not to get better.
Well, and like also, nobody is successful by themselves. And like Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about this all the time. Like when he first came to the United States, like he was sleeping on people's couches while he was building his career. And he's like, I could not have done this on my own. I owe my success to the dozens of people in my life that were there for me when I had nothing and supported me while I worked on myself. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here.
And imagine if I mean, we were talking about one of the most famous bodybuilders in the entire world. Uh, if he, I don't know, if it was all given to him, he probably wouldn't have been as successful, right? Like if being just naturally in great shape, not having to work out, he probably would never have worked out as hard as he did to become as muscular and large as he was. All right, so we have more to talk about on this almost Friday. Professor of the Mental Breakdown accuses class of cheating video. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, or Facebook, I dropped a link to that in the comments. If you're watching on TikTok or Instagram, we can't see your comments, and you can't see my comments. You just have to listen to me. You also don't get to see James. So tune in on
the
YouTube
line
or
that sticks
Facebook.
with me from that video, there's many funny lines, but like, and this isn't spoiling anything because it's very early on in the video when the professor is accusing his class of cheating. He says, "Look, there aren't magical people floating around in the world just giving you the answers. The truth is earned. You have to work for it."
Yeah. Well said. So then this week you sent me a values quiz.
Yep.
And the quiz is effectively, I mean, you could very easily see what metrics they used and how they used them to establish what your values were. They just said you value this over this or this over this, and then they just kind of quantify.
Yeah, like I don't think the algorithm behind the generation of the results is particularly complicated, but it still forces you to think about the things that you value. And this came out of a discussion I had with someone I just met, and they were asking me what my values were, and we listed out each other's values on paper, and then later on they sent me this quiz to say like, hey, like here's where I got the idea. I want to see what your results are, and so like I wanted to go through, like I made you take the quiz, and I wanted to go through like where you and I differ, and like why you ended up picking the stuff that you did, and why I ended up picking the stuff that I did.
So let's
And then talk about like some of the other options that are on there, because there's like 50 choices.
Oh, there was a lot. I think I chose 24 or 26, and then I was like, I got to go back through and knock some of these off because
I think I ended with 22 before I got to the second stage.
yeah, I probably was at like 22 or 23 because I took some off. I was like, there are better things on here for that. So let's lead with your number one and then my number one.
All right. Well, let me remind myself what those are.
You have the link right there. I said that there's some real parallels in ours, and yours like, and you said I don't think there is.
I think there's considerable differences.
Okay, so go with your number one.
All right. So my number one is trust,
and my number one is certainty.
Which those are actually somewhat similar. Actually.
Well, so my thinking. Well, no, tell me why you like trust as number one.
Well, thinking about this in like a relationship context, which is how this conversation kind of started, is I think that trust is the most important thing in a relationship.
So I chose certainty over that because I actually don't. I'm not a very trusting person in the sense that I really don't like being burned. So I typically don't put myself in a situation where if somebody did something that I wasn't expecting, I would be burned that much. And to me, there's a lot of kind of blind faith in trust. I would rather be certain.
Yeah, and I would say that,
Or okay with it, the answer, with it not going my way.
and I would say that if you have trust in a relationship, you can be certain that what they're telling you is the truth.
And I would say that that might be a little ignorant.
I would say, like when it
I
comes
mean,
to, like when it comes to a relationship, and this is something that I'm still learning, is that like you have to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable, otherwise it's you're placing limitations on what the relationship can become.
I suppose, I'm not saying I'm not vulnerable. I'm just saying that I'm okay. I'm putting myself in a situation where if it doesn't go my way, I'm okay with that. With that situation.
Have you ever been in a relationship where the trust where the trust eroded or disappeared?
Um, yeah, I've been in relationships where there was no trust to begin with.
Okay,
You know,
and how did those relationships go?
well, I mean, any former relationship obviously has ended, but same thing for you. So
Right.
even
And
those relationships that did have a high amount of trust have ended for you. So
yeah, but the reason why the relationships where the trust was there ended was because of, well, I mean, obviously unrelated reasons unrelated to trust.
well, I've never had a relationship end because of cheating, and that's probably the biggest issue with trust.
But it doesn't have to be cheating. It's if you just no longer believe somebody when they tell you something, whether it's cheating or otherwise.
I have a very good friend that I don't believe 80% or 70%, probably more accurately, that comes out of his mouth. And you
Yeah,
have
but would you rely on them to complete like a critical task for you?
yes, in some cases. Like if I say, "Hey, we got," so it's weird because like I know 70% that comes out of this person's mouth is total bullshit or a complete fabrication. But if this person was like, "I can be there at 2 o'clock on Tuesday," they would show up at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, which is
Right. So
very strange dynamic.
it sounds to me like there are spheres of trust, and they are trustworthy in certain
Yeah,
aspects.
yeah. We could talk about that off the air. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so let's move on to number two here.
All right. So my number two is curiosity.
Okay, what is mine here? Discipline. Okay, um, curiosity ranked. I don't think it's in my top five, but I ranked it. Um, I constantly ranked like learning and knowledge and curiosity pretty highly because
So
I think that's what makes the world interesting. You have to
yeah.
be interested in things.
So like for years, discipline was one that I ranked that just didn't quite make the cut, but like it was still a value that I picked. But like curiosity, I think is like it it's really hard to have motivation to do a lot of things if you don't have curiosity. And like curiosity is a precondition for so many other aspects of growth.
Well, yeah, intelligence.
Yeah.
I just think if you're not, I like curiosity. I think that's probably one. Like I said, I ranked up there too, but didn't make it. If you're not curious, I just don't think you're that intelligent, right? Because what's driving you to become more intelligent and learn more if you're not just simply
Yeah.
curious?
Well, yeah, and if have you ever read the book Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman?
Hmm. Um, no, it like vaguely rings a bell.
So it was a book written by Richard Feynman, who was a premier like particle physicist and
Yeah.
theoretical physicist in like the 70s and 80s. But the book is much more an exploration of curiosity and how curiosity led him to discover things. And so like there's a little bit of physics in the book, but you don't need to have any science background whatsoever to understand what he's talking about because it's him like making observations in the world and saying, that might be related to something else. I wonder if it is. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But like there were some discoveries he made. Like one of them was like a friend threw a plate up in the cafeteria, and the plate had to happen to have like some markings on it. And so when you threw the plate up, the plate was wobbling. It was spinning, but it was also wobbling, right?
Hmm.
And so he was observing the plate in the air and seeing that like the spots on the plate were rotating at a certain speed and wondered like how that related to the wobble. So it's rotating and wobbling, and how are those two different oscillations related? And that led to like a discovery when it comes to like quantum spin with like electrons and stuff.
So I've listened to him speak quite a bit, and he doesn't. It's not just he speaks enough to the layman that that it's interesting, and I think he's a super bright guy. I haven't. You said it's a book.
Yeah, surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman. I had to read it in college, and it's well worth reading. It's very well written. It's entertaining. It goes over all sorts of different topics. But like
I have to
another
add
one
it
is
to
like
my
when he was
Audible.
in college, he had an argument with his frat brothers about like when you pee as a male, like whether it's just gravity that's allowing the pee to flow out. And like some people, he said no, it's a muscle that's pushing the pee out, and other people in his frat were saying no, it's just gravity that lets it out. And the way that he disproved it was by peeing while standing on his head.
All right, I'll give you a little on my second answer here, discipline, and then we'll move on to number three. I rank discipline very highly. I have considerably less discipline as an adult and as somebody who lived a lot of their late 20s and 30s as I had a pretty easy life in my late 20s and 30s where I lost a lot of discipline. So now I'm trying to regain it, and it's for me as somebody who's been pretty independent, discipline really, and I'm not saying I wasn't disciplined. I'm just saying when I was a lot younger, I was way more disciplined. Um, discipline is like the ability to wake up early and get things done when nobody is telling you to do it. To keep a certain order in your life, to have certain priorities. It takes a lot of discipline to have those values. I think all the values on the list require a certain amount of discipline. So for me, discipline was ranking very high because without discipline, none of the values really matter.
And that can be said about a lot of these values, is that like they're interconnected and somewhat interdependent. And so like narrowing down the list for me became difficult, and like I started to like have to say like, okay, well, can I roll one of these into the other somehow so like I can narrow things
Yeah,
down? And
very,
so like
very much so.
discipline, I've also struggled with discipline, especially in the last couple years. And like I've been making a real concerted push, especially in the last like month or so. And like, dude, I've got 250 miles on the bike. I did 18 miles before work this morning.
Yeah, told me you've been crushing it, and that takes discipline.
Yeah.
And that's why I've done a couple of dry months over the last few years because I like to kind of root myself and be like, hey, you know what? It's going to take a certain amount of discipline. It can be very difficult, but you just got to kind of lay some ground rules and then abide by them. All right, you
Oh,
want to
and it's the same thing with the me not drinking right now. It's just like,
hit?
okay, like, can you do it? And so far, like one beer in 7 days, and I don't intend on having another beer
Well,
until our next sip talk.
but also having one beer, I think actually takes more discipline than having no beers.
Yeah.
All right, so your number three was one that I constantly ranked very highly because I believe that is kind of a core value for myself, but it didn't make my list. So go ahead with your number three.
Authenticity.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are not their authentic selves.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think if you're trying too hard to fit in or trying too hard to dress a certain way, like I just think you got to own who you are and not hide behind anything. Am I? What are your thoughts on authenticity?
I think back to when I studied abroad in Spain, and I was in a group of maybe about 60 American exchange students. And the vast majority of them were like super rich entitled kids that were treating it like a 6 month long vacation. And while I lived in Spain for that 6 months, I had a Spanish roommate, and he was my only friend because my Spanish roommate was authentic. And we got along. I didn't get along with any of the Americans because I didn't feel like they were authentic, and I didn't feel like they were interested in the authentic me, and I wasn't willing to change just to make friends.
I think being genuine is really really important, and that's kind of the biggest, like that's the shittiest part of middle school and high school.
Yeah.
And I think you and I did a very good job, both of us, being genuine and authentically ourselves, without compromising who we were, and it does take some sacrifice to just be odd, and I think
You
I
have to
think
be okay with the fact that not everyone is going to like you.
yeah, but I think like you were going to come across odd in very many situations, but I also think that's very cool, right? Like that's what makes you unique and different from everybody else is that you are
It's
different.
easy to say that as an adult. It's really hard to say that when you're 14 or 15.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I don't even know how I would try to explain it to a 14 or 15-year-old. Like it's like
Yeah.
sometimes you got to fight. Like I wouldn't even getting back in that mindset would be very difficult to do. Let me come up with my number 3 here, and that is this is a bad one. Um, Certainty, discipline, and control. uh, I definitely like having a certain amount of control over my environment and over what's happening to me. Uh, I don't like being in crowds. I don't like not knowing what's going to happen next. I certainly don't like uncertainty. Um, and I'm not saying like I'm not open to change or certain amount of uncertainty, but I just don't like being blindsided.
I think you can interpret control in a number of different ways because you can look at it as like, I'm the boss of the company, I'm in control. Or you can look at it in similar ways to discipline of like, I have control of myself.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a company and effectively am the boss, but I don't look at it as like I'm in control. I actually, because I have a bunch of independent contractors, I actually kind of flip that narrative, and in my mind, they're all in control, right? And they're all my boss, and um, but I do think like a need for security and having some being at the helm and having some impact on the direction of where your life goes is very, very important. And you can't do that if you're not in control. All right, you want to hit the next one?
All right, so my next one goes along pretty closely with authenticity, and that's honesty.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the training that I did for real estate agents this morning, just about how if you lie or embellish or mislead, the second your client becomes aware of that, which they are more likely going to than you would think, you've lost a client. Right? You need to
You've
be
lost
honest.
multiple clients.
You need to be honest. Well, you might lose that client, but then also they may go and write a bad review, which is going to cost you even more clients
That's what I mean.
and the
Is
company more clients.
right, and they're gonna say like any of their friends are gonna say, "Don't use so and so company. They lied to me." And I'll
Mhm.
give you an example. Many years ago, I was dragged out to brunch by a girlfriend at the time at the Charleston Place Hotel, and yes, I'm going to name them. And it's a very expensive, very nice breakfast. And we sat down and we were asked what we wanted to drink. And I said, "Do you guys have fresh squeezed orange juice?" And the server said, "Yes." I said, "Then I'll have that." A couple minutes later, they bring me out a glass of orange juice. And for those of you who appreciate orange juice, you can tell the difference between fresh squeezed and not immediately. And it wasn't. And I will never eat there again. Because if he had just said, "No, we don't have fresh squeezed," I would have made a different order. But he lied to me.
But you didn't. You didn't call him on it.
No.
I totally would. I would have called him on it and enjoyed that conversation as it unfolded. Yeah, but no, I mean, and I mean that's one guy, but that tarnishes the entire experience and the entire venue for you.
Yep.
And I can only imagine how much that breakfast cost. Although I do question why you ordered a fresh squeezed orange juice and not just a screwdriver, whereas the freshness of the orange juice does not matter so much. It was a
Because it was
brunch.
breakfast and it was not brunch, it was breakfast.
Oh, excuse me, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm not having a screwdriver for breakfast, especially since at the time I was working night audit. So all I really wanted to do was go to
Go to
sleep.
sleep. All right. So you got honesty. All right. And I think you and I actually like honesty even when it burns,
Yeah.
which most people don't. Uh,
I there are several friends of mine that appreciate the fact that I'm honest to the point where it's actually comical to them.
all right. So then my number 4, and I know you must have ranked this one pretty highly as well, was health. Uh,
I actually didn't, but I don't think I ranked it at all because I kind of look at it as a consequence of like all the others coming together. It's like if you do everything right, health will just like
Yeah, well, so I didn't look at it like
result.
that. I looked at it as like cancer or terminal illness type thing, and thinking that like without health, like I actually, I have a high value that fact that I am healthy. Like for me, it's a very valuable thing to be healthy because I understand that when that's taken from you, it may not be in your control. So I hold a high value of that fact, and and then also when we talk about discipline and exercise and motivation, et cetera, health is a consequence of those. But I think just general overall luck of health is a very valuable thing.
Yeah,
I have a
and health's a
totally
funny
different.
one there because like there's lots you can do to like improve your health, but sometimes shit happens, man. And like you just get diagnosed with cancer.
I,
And like you didn't do anything, it just happened.
yeah, exactly. So again, yeah, there's two angles to come at health. One, it's a byproduct of the other one, or two, it's something that you're blessed with or cursed. Cursed
Yeah.
with.
Well,
And I look at it as the latter.
and I think that like you could like if I kind of want to go through like all the values that they have there to discuss some of the ones that like we both didn't pick or
Well,
both like didn't make our cut.
we each have one more here.
Yeah. So my number 5 is independence.
Yeah, I fully understand that from you. That may be ranked like midway. It did come up a few times for me, but it wasn't obviously my top five. I will give you my fifth one, and that was wisdom. Um, and wisdom to me was kind of like being able to play chess in life, like being able to think 5, 6 steps ahead, and just be able to make the better choice when maybe immediately it's not the best choice.
Yeah, and like I always think like sometimes the best examples of wisdom is like knowing when not to talk.
There you go. I'm going to hit this bar trivia question for this week, and then we can get back to this in a little bit. So actually, bar trivia answer for this week is the answer to last week's question. Picture a ship at anchor. So the ship's in the water, anchor is down. Over the side hangs a rope ladder with 5-meter rungs. The tide rises 0.5 meter per hour. At the end of 5 hours, how much of the ladder will remain above water, assuming that 9 rungs were above the water when the tide began to rise?
Still going to be 9 rungs.
Yeah, it's still going to be 9 rungs because the ladder isn't moving along the boat, and the boat is staying at the same level with the water. The water is rising relative
The
to the
rising
land,
tide lifts all boats.
but the boat is also rising relative to the land. So I thought that was an easy one. But when I first read it, there was like a 2-second lag where I actually thought about it, and then I was like, oh no, duh. But this week's one.
That's about your natural ping rate, anyways.
That's well, I mean, that's I this is how I can relate to the everyman is that my brain goes in the direction of the everyman before I have to stop myself and think, oh, if everybody's thinking this, there's got to be another angle. So, and these are brain teasers. So that's the idea. You can't think the obvious answers. You got to think outside the box. Although that was a pretty easy question. Today's question is also super easy.
Yeah, but we're getting to that in like 20 minutes, right?
And I feel like most people are not going to be able to get the answer. So
Hey, we got Shahir Abban on.
hang tight to the end of this episode. I've got a great bar trivia question. And you can always go to SipTalkPodcast.com, answer the bar trivia question, and win some cool SipTalk merch. All right. So where do you want to go here? You want to talk about some of the values?
I want to go through some of these values that like some of the ones that like I definitely didn't pick. So like certainty is one that I didn't pick.
And that was high on mine.
I just think that that's unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. How about courage?
I might have picked that one, but like I ended up it fell off pretty quick.
How about creativity?
I don't consider myself to be a particularly creative person, so I was like, I can't really value that one.
How about excitement?
I think that comes from curiosity.
Yeah, I think they meant like hot air ballooning and hang gliding and bungee jumping, and that's nothing I have any desire to do.
Have you ever skydived?
No,
You should.
I don't want to do that.
It's fun.
I don't like heights. The whole idea just seems silly to me. Not
Well,
something.
it is silly, but
It would be like, hey, you want to get a whole body wax? Your skin feels really nice afterwards. I'm like, well, no, I'm perfectly happy with the way my skin feels now, and that sounds painful.
what about challenge?
Challenge, I think.
Do you like being mentally challenged?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I do, but I hate like losing. So I do like a little challenge. I challenge myself often, but it would definitely not rate high up there. How about fame? I didn't rate fame at all.
Yeah, I would probably actually assign that a negative value.
How about beauty?
That's important.
So beauty for me didn't even rank, but I just think taking care of yourself would be like, you don't have to be beautiful, you don't have to be a model or a movie star. You just need to be well taken care of.
Leah Hussein says no jumping out of a plane for me either. Seriously, you've got to try it. Like it's actually like it's exhilarating and then really peaceful. Like when you pull the chute.
Do you
Like,
think that's because everything up until the moment where your parachute actually comes out okay, you're thinking, fuck, 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 what if the parachute doesn't come out okay?
it makes me think of one of my favorite one-line responses. So an army sergeant, drill sergeant, is going through the steps for the paratroopers are in training.
I feel like I
And
know this already, but
yeah, and so the army sergeant's going through the instructions on how to operate the chute and everything else like that, and he's explaining like, yeah, you've got your primary chute and you've got your like emergency chute, right? And going through all that, and then one of the privates says, okay, so if the primary chute doesn't do that, I pull this tab and I get the emergency chute. And he says, well, what happens if I pull like the primary and it doesn't go, and then I pull the emergency and that also doesn't go? And the sergeant says, you're gonna have the rest of your life to fix it.
yeah, for that. All right, let's just talk a couple others. Acceptance.
No, like you don't have not everything has to be accepted. Be yourself. That's authenticity. Authenticity means that you're not necessarily going to be accepted.
Okay. Popularity.
Nope.
Love.
Yes, that's important.
Yeah, but I agree, but it didn't rank high on uniqueness.
I think that comes from authenticity.
Yeah, again, that was like one that was I might have marked initially and then been like, it's not a top. Family.
Yes and no. Like
It,
because like I don't think it's a value that I would want to like say other people should cherish, because like if you have a shitty family, you can't control that.
yeah. I don't know. I looked at family as like a byproduct of some of the other ones, like being in control and being able to choose your environment. I don't know. I don't know how it obviously was not a top tier one for me, but it's not that I discount that as a value. All right, let's see.
Um, let's see. Wealth and financial stability are both kind of like right next to each other, and like I didn't pick either of those.
Well, they ranked very very high for me. They didn't make the top five, but that also comes with like certainty. Like you want to have a certain amount of control, not knowing the rug's going to be pulled out from you any minute.
Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't want to lose my job and I don't want to be broke, but like, they're not things that I'm like striving for as much as other areas in my life.
All right, I'll give you a couple more. Spirituality.
Nope.
Me neither. Inner harmony.
I feel like that comes from like authenticity.
I thought inner harmony actually would work against me on a number of the other ones. Like, actually, you need some inner imbalance to be good at a lot of things. Equality.
Yeah, but I look at like there's a few on here that I feel like are kind of preconditions, where like they rank like as just base assumptions. So like one of them is like freedom. So I don't really see freedom so much as a value as I see it more as, if you don't have freedom, you can't hold values, because you don't have the freedom to choose your values.
Let me just I'll list the last couple. We can move on here. Contribution. So basically giving, like you value giving to the church or something. Equality, justice, meaningful, impactful work, teamwork, ethics, commitment, tolerance, helpfulness, freedom, ambition. None of these. I mean, I might have clicked on one or two of these. Probably like a lot of them I did not. Like, I don't know. We had an interesting top five each. So let's move on here after our values and actually talk about how they impact our lives. And you writing a book over there or what?
Yep.
That's the problem with doing a podcast on the computer, is that you get messages and emails and you can just totally tune out because it's impossible to multitask. I'll wait until you finish. I'll repeat all that.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So let's move into this realm of self-improvement, motivation, negative and positive cycles. Given that now you've turned a new leaf, you got 250 miles on the bike, you're not drinking, you've turned this new leaf. So So why are these relevant?
Because it feels like a paradox. Like when you make those positive changes in retrospect, you're like, that was actually pretty easy to do. But like getting started on it can be really hard. And like I know that you've been there a number of times with exercise, whereas like if you haven't exercised for a while, when you first start, it is a chore to
Well,
get out there
yeah,
and just push yourself.
I
And
I
it,
haven't. Well, I never really taken that much time off of exercising, but I tend to fluctuate between weightlifting and running, which actually work against each other. So, if I spend a lot of time like bodybuilding and packing on muscle mass, and then decide I want to run, weighing 25 pounds more, than you did last summer, trying to do a 7.5 or 10 mile run is impossible. And I think it's a bigger uphill battle than if you just didn't put on all the muscle and just didn't run for 8 months. Uh, so, yeah,
but for me, like the pattern for exercise, if I haven't done it for a while, is like it starts off and it's miserable, and then like if I do it, if I stick with it for long enough, then it's like, okay, this isn't so bad, and then there's like a magic inflection point where like it switches from I need to do this today to I feel uneasy that I haven't.
that's what it is, and I think really the underlying what we're trying to get at are cycles and patterns. Like that's kind of the underlying topic that we're talking about when we talk about motivation and self improvement. Is that it only works if you have this routine and a pattern and this underlying motivation, but it's really difficult to get started doing these things, and then at a certain point it gets easier. All right, so uh, and you have a comment about the paradox of how quickly it can turn around. uh,
Yeah, but because like so about 15 years ago I was into cycling big time, like where I would be able to do like 55, 60 miles in a day, and like I would go on these group rides, um and I would not be the fastest person in the ride, but like there would be times where I was like not overall, but like there would be times where I would be carrying like 20 people and I would be like pushing like 27, 28 miles an hour when everybody else wanted to do 25. Now, like and like I look back at that time, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to touch that level of performance again.
well,
And
as two dudes who are rapidly approaching their 40s, yeah,
no,
that's a tricky thing to come to terms with. And the
but
question is, will you be able to?
well, for the longest time, I was like, you know what? Between my age and some questionable health choices that I've made, I don't know if that's even attainable. But I've been really putting in the work for just 2 weeks. And like, I know that I'm not going to be able to get there in 2 weeks or even a month or two. But like, seeing the progress and feeling the changes, I was like, you know what? It actually feels like it's within reach. It's not close, but like, it doesn't feel impossible. And
Well, we talked about this last year when we were trying to get mile times under 6 minutes, right?
you were able to get your mile time into the sixes. The best I was able to do was like 7:20.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't. Right now where I am again because I ended up actually really very badly injuring my foot last summer. Um, that was miserable. But I'm picking it back up, and I'm doing like these 8.5 minute miles and low eights, and I'm just like, damn, I don't know how I could imagine shaving another 2 minutes off of that. Like, how impossible is it? But the possibility comes with the routine and the repetitiveness and the cycle. Um,
Well,
so
and it's the same thing with negative cycles. It's
well,
like,
it's way easier to get into a negative cycle, though. That's the
well, yeah, because they require less investment.
well. So what I noted here was that positive routines tend to be very tough to start. They get easier, and life gets easier, but they're also really easy to break and fall out of. Whereas a negative cycle is easy to get into, but then life gets harder, and it's harder to break a negative
Yeah.
cycle. So a positive cycle is tough to get into, makes life easy, but easy to fall out of. Negative cycle is easy to get into, makes life harder, and harder to get out of.
But
And think about that like in terms the way I'm thinking about it is like health, exercise, and diet versus like drinking and drugs and I don't know, crime or something.
Yeah, but I just think like for the past like 3 or 4 years, it's been really tough for me to be able to like hold a positive cycle for any amount of time, and like for some reason this time I was like, was it really that easy the whole time?
Well, I call it day 3 syndrome. Okay, so like day 1 is easy because at many points in time you'll be super motivated, and in those moments it's really easy to say, you know what, I'm going to put my running shoes on, I'm going to go out on the bike, I'm going to go lift some weights, and just fucking go at it ham, and then it's over with. And then day 2, you're still kind of flying high because you just got that motivation and you already got one under your wings, and so you go and you do it again. But then like day 3, you're not as motivated. You've got that sense of accomplishment because now you're in the cycle already. You've done it twice.
You're a little sore.
And in the case of exercise, it could be you're a little sore. And you know, I'll give you an example. Like in the instance, like you go on a diet. Monday, your diet's great. Tuesday, your diet's great. Wednesday, somebody's having a birthday party in the office, and you're like, okay, well, you know, I won't have my regular slice of cake, but I'll take a little bit. Like it is a birthday special occasion. And then and what happens is now you've broken the cycle. And even though you only had a little bit of cake, then you go home and you have a soda or something, and then you know, and then the next day you wake up and you have a fucking microwave burrito. Like but day 3 is where it falls apart. So that's my day 3 syndrome, and it you know, I talk about it in my office in the real estate context and how like
It's 2 months later. There's muffins in your bed.
yes, muffins can end up in your bed. We know that from experience, not personally, but we have been the witness to a diet going wrong that ends up with muffins hidden under the covers. True story.
Yeah.
Sorry for the person who is probably listening to us right now.
You know who you are.
Going, damn you guys, that's not how it happened. You and I are like, well, you know, we were there. But aside from that, but I think the day 3 syndrome is really the thing that corrupts the motivation. And you know, the thing is, it's the hard decisions now that need to be made if you want things to be easier later. And I mean, I think everybody knows that, but also that motivation, it can't be built on motivation because motivation is a fleeting emotion, and you can be super motivated today, but you can self rationalize yourself and talk yourself out of it 2 days or 10 days or 2 hours from now.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like right now, my biggest struggle with cycling is like actually taking a day off, because like there'll be times where like I know that I just need to be like let my muscles completely recover, but like sometimes I'll still go out. My muscles are like, we really shouldn't be doing this. Shut up.
So, you know, and I've been running, and running is I think there's a lot more impact on the joints, the knees, the ankles, the hips than there is in cycling. And I don't have a nice bike like you do. So I've been running, but I have been the maximum I'm doing is every other day because it's just too much on the body.
Well, that's one nice thing about cycling is like, yeah, it doesn't beat you up in the same way that running does.
No, a great muscle workout. It's a great muscle workout. It's great, you know, like aerobics and for your lungs. But it's definitely better on the knees and the hips. And since we are getting old, we got to think about those things. So I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, I didn't want to kind of corrupt our topic by bringing this up, but we talked about how I took a tree down a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay, so I took this tree down, and it's probably one of the bigger trees that I've taken down. It's I don't know, it's probably like I'm holding my hands up, and neither one is in the frame. So for whatever that's worth, it's big enough that neither one of my hands is in the frame. And I took it down, and for some reason it was a lot tougher to take down than I thought it was going to be. Come to find out, my chainsaw blade is just really worn, needed to be sharpened. So I recently got some new chains, very sharp, and I chopped it up into like 2.5 foot, like 30-inch segments. And half of the tree, I was able to struggle to get them in the back of my truck and then move them to the back of the house. But now that I'm at the bottom half of the tree, these logs weigh like 300 to 350 pounds. And I've been rolling them into the forest behind my house and across the yard and the lawn. And yesterday I stopped. My heart rate was like at $175 from rolling this log across the lawn, and I couldn't even lift it off the ground enough to get it in the back of the truck. Isn't that wild?
Couldn't you use like your riding mower to just like drag them?
No way, no way. And the thing is, if you're dragging it, like you've got to tie it, and
Oh, you're
unless
going to be tearing up your lawn.
well, here's what's going to happen: it's just going to catch the lawn, and you're not going to have enough torque or grip on the tires to keep going. I mean, these things are heavy, so unless it was actually rolling, but if you're tying it, it's going to be really difficult to get it to roll.
You could push it.
Well, with the lawnmower,
Yeah.
I don't think that would work. But I literally just like been rolling them.
You could put it under the blades and wait.
No, I'm not thinking of Icarus. Who's the rolling guy?
Sisyphus.
Sisyphus.
He's my personal hero.
Yeah, I always think of Icarus and forget Sisyphus.
Sisyphus is my personal hero. Seriously, like probably the most inspirational. Like,
is it his discipline?
I'll send you the link to the philosophical work.
Well, I'm familiar with it, but I'm curious the philosophical breakdown of it. But that's what I feel like. I'm just rolling these things. But point is, a heart rate of at 40 years old of 175 beats per minute, when it's 98 degrees outside, is not healthy. And I have to now. When I was younger, I would just be like, push it until I collapse. I'm never going to collapse. I'm just going to keep pushing it, and it's going to suck. Now I'm like, if I push it until I collapse, I'm probably collapsing because I'm having a heart attack. So I need to take breaks and stop myself. All right. On that note, we're talking about old people and young people. This week's episode 273 bar trivia question is: how can you physically stand behind your father while he is standing behind you? You're stumped?
No.
I think that's a good question. How can you physically stand behind your father while he is standing behind you? I'll let you answer that one off the air. We'll see if you're correct. The one with the boat rungs was pretty easy, I thought. Anything I'm missing here in this episode that we wanted to cover that we have not?
No, I think we did it.
I think we did it. So that means we're going to have to part way with our viewer or our listener, and we'll wrap up for today. Thank you guys for joining. Visit SipTalkPodcast.com. Buy us a drink, buy us a shot, buy us a bottle, buy us a round of drinks. Answer the bar trivia question. You can check out all the past bar trivia questions on SipTalkPodcast.com. And we'll see you guys next time. Adios. Thank you for making it through the entire podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. That really helps out our channel. We are trying to grow. Thank you again.